Wondering about. I haven't really heard much, but Abe Lucas. Obviously, he's one of the key captain type guys. Is he among maybe the best tackle you've kind of ever coached?
I would say so. I mean, as far as natural ability, desire, focus, he's a very centered young man, and so I think that's really helped him. With all the decisions he had to make in the off season. I think his character is what kind of held him strong, but he's an incredible talent. I mean, you see, there's a lot of people that want to see him just because, he's different.
A lot of solid transfer defensive backs. I know you've talked about the depth in that unit before, but out of those kind of three main guys, who do you think maybe will have the most impact this year? Has kind of stepped into.
Caleb's done a nice job. Has a personality that fit in pretty early. TJ got banged up early, but is making his way back, so we'll get to see him before game day in the next week or so. They've all helped. They've all contributed, and what that also gives you better opportunities to put your best guys on special teams. And I think the coaches have done a really nice job bringing every single kid on this team along within the offense and defense. You're dealing with a super senior situation where quite possibly could be a big not exodus, but you'll lose a bunch of guys after the season. So concentrating on developing your young guys at this time of the year and throughout the fall is something we're gonna make sure we don't forget.
At each defensive position, is there more of a luxury this year of being able to rotate people to stay fresh against those high-tempo offenses that you'll see? Was that something you weren't able to do as effectively last season?
Well, our depth is a lot better than last season, especially how much it varied game to game. But the substitution is, you're going against a tempo team, so there's not always an opportunity to sub, right? You got to get up and play and get in condition to play, and that'll be the early on handling that tempo will be something we got to see.
Is there a defensive position you think got the edge for the deepest right now?
Seen some good development at the linebacker position, towards the end of camp. I think we've increased our depth and our accountability or dependability in those positions. The edge group, I think there's a solid depth on defense throughout. Corners got some guys we feel like can play, so that always helps us.
Sort of an overarching question. I asked you the other day about defensive shortfalls from last season you were able to eliminate this year, but I didn't really get into, are there any on the offensive end that you think?
Turnovers and mindset when things don't go our way. I thought last year we were weak-minded offensively, and whether you say it was because of the year, anyway, whatever the reason was, the mentality needed to be stronger, and I think we're making our way towards that.
Do you think that's partly knowledge of the offense and then just people growing up to maturity?
Well, I'm sure there's both of those in that for sure, but I think the biggest part is this team growing together and trusting in one another and doing it for each other, being accountable to one another, not just, for any selfish reasons.
What does Deshaun Stribling bring to the table? And if somebody told you in the spring that guy maybe would be a starting receiver, would that take you by surprise?
That would have been nice to hear. He worked his way to that position. He's been consistent. He's got a high level of effort. He comes to practice with a purpose every day. I think he's really gelled with the team, whether it's freshmen or seniors. I think they see how he plays on the field, and I think that earns respect. So very happy he's here, and very happy he's put himself in this position to make some plays for us this year.
And the guys throwing to him, you think that there's a possibility that competition does go into the season a little bit, or is it priority to get that?
Well, I mean, probably in your world, it probably will not, but in on this field and in that building, it needs to. We need to keep making everybody better. They got to scratch and claw at the heels of whoever's taking the first snap, and if they don't do that, then we're not getting better as a football team.
How have Travell and Calvin looked at the insides now.
Really, I mean, I think they're doing a really nice job. But who deserves some credit is the training room, the doctors, the strength guys. Who I love how the plan is shaped up as far as them being healthy and fresh going into game week. I think it was just a team effort from all those areas to get not only those two, but keeping everybody a little bit more fresh and healthy. And I think we're getting guys back quicker because of that, working in unison between those areas.
Practice changed a little bit from where it was Friday now.
In what way?
A couple days ago, more game week type stuff going on?
Oh, yes. There was much more emphasis on Utah State.
Okay. And that looks like you kind of just install their schemes on the other team and practice against it. Is that?
Well, you just gotta go through some of the things the coaches, where they've come from, what they've done, who they're connected to. You just got to have preparation. You got to make sure your rules are sound, and if there's any flaws in them, these coaches are good enough to find them. And so, but yeah, I mean, this is focusing on Utah State offense and defense, and kind of just really tightening in our special teams mentality and philosophy and strategy coming into this season.
And I'm wondering about kick returner, punt returner. Is that an ongoing thing, or have you settled on somebody to take those?
Well, I think we got a lot of trust in Travell. I think we've got more guys that can kickoff return for us. I think we've got a bunch of guys that can be dangerous with the ball in their hand. I know we've talked about Dion. Travell can be back there. You got Lincoln Victor. There's some skill that can be back there and do a nice job.
And Nick Haber's.
He did a really nice job. You get scared because he's never played football, and it would have been much harder if he didn't get here in January. I think Coach Krantz and the other specialists have done an incredible job teaching him the game. Australians are pretty easy to like anyway, so I think he's fit in great. But, learning what a safety is, that's not a first-day conversation for someone who's foreign to the game. So I think I know there's been multiple times where he's in the office and they're just watching a football game, just watching the flow and he feels comfortable enough to ask questions and get us there. But as far as kicking and his skill set, I think we've been pleasantly surprised at how early he's been able to do what we ask.